share my screen and not screw it up this time. Okay, so we have our test course up, and right along the top you have two ways you can create assignments, discussions, and quizzes. You could either do it directly through the content tool. So if you click on content and go to a module, you'll see your upload create button, and then you can scroll on down past the resource items and go straight to new assignment, new discussion, new quiz. So you could do that from here and it'll give you the same options. And the benefit of this is that it's already in the content tool, so you don't have to worry about an extra step. But I'm all about extra steps, so I'm going to do it through the actual tool, and then I'll show you how to bring it over in case you'd rather do it that way. So I'm going to click on assignments up in the top. And when you do this, it brings you to your list of assignments and whatever you already have. In assignments, you can make categories just like you could with your gradebook and also with discussions. And they each have little icons next to them. And if you hover over them, it kind of gives you an idea of what they mean. Obviously, the crossed out eyeball is that it's hidden, so students can't see it. This means that there's special access attached to it. So I have maybe a student who needs longer time on it. So the little key indicates that. And then the little ribbon indicates that there's a grade item associated with it. So if I look through my list of assignments and see no grade item, or ribbon rather, associated with any of them, it means it's not in the gradebook at all. And that might be okay. If you don't want to grade a certain assignment, that's totally fine. But if you're wondering why a grade isn't populating in the gradebook, look out for the little ribbon. And that kind of goes for discussions as well, as we'll see. So I think what I'm going to do is just create one. So I'm going to come right up to new assignment, and it's going to open up a new assignment page for us. And I have the new sort of tool. There is an older version that you might see that looks a lot like how you set up discussions. But I guess for the sake of education, I'll leave the new one on just because it will eventually happen. And I kind of like it a little better anyway. If you want to change your old version to this new version, just look out for the little arrow icon. You could turn it on if you like, or you can just use it with the tabs up top like we saw with the discussions and such yesterday. So with the assignments, you give it a nice title. So I'm going to keep going with this free write number because it's easy to just put out there. And then right below it, we have score out of. So if you do not click in this box, you don't have a grade item because it's not graded. So why would it go to the gradebook? So if you want to actually assess it, you can click on that field and just add your amount of points. So maybe I'll do 25 points for this one. And you can see it's already in grades. Now that means it's going to automatically create a grade item for you. But if you're like, oh, I already have one, I want to connect it, you can click on this box and choose from your grades. So I actually did make one before this just so I could get in and associate it afterwards. But I could create this new one and just associate it with free write number 4. Or I guess I didn't create one in this course, it was the other one. If I did create one, I would have this option to link it to an existing grade item, and then I'd get that drop-down box that we saw yesterday. But because I don't have a new one, it's kind of catching me and saying, well, you might want to create one. So I luckily have a category in my gradebook that I could put it in. So I just click on the category, say OK, and now I know it's going to be in that category when I'm done. We also have a due date over here, so it opens up a calendar date picker, which is pretty nice. So maybe I'll say it's next week. And it automatically puts it to 11:59, but you can override that, type over it, or you could even scroll around, pick an arbitrary time if you like. We also have our instruction box down here, which has all of our familiar text box tools. So you can give like an audio sort of introduction to the assignment. You can copy and paste from the syllabus, whatever you would like to do. We just have some extra icons on the bottom that aren't totally normal across Brightspace. We have our file upload, so it's like the little cloud with the up arrow. You could just click on that to get any file from your actual computer. You can also click the back button and get from your course offering files. We talked about it yesterday where if you remove a file from the content, it still lives in your content file repository essentially. So you can pull from those if you'd like, if it's relevant. You can also search for a past video note. So if you said something before and didn't put it somewhere, you can search for that note here. But the computer is usually the most used. We also have attach a link to an existing activity. So that is our quick links, but it's more for courses. And then this one is for web links. So if you have a URL you want to lead to. So if I clicked on existing activity, I can refer to anything that's already in my course as like a reference for this assignment. So if the discussions kind of inform it, I can say, refer to your post in the writing process to inform this assignment. So I can refer back to the discussion, maybe they can read a couple and get an idea of what they want to write about. We also have attached from Google Drive, which requires you to sign in with your Google account, but you can pull from any Google Drive files. And then we have our normal audio and video. So before you continue on and save and close, we have 3 different sections over here we just want to review. So if you click on availability dates and conditions, this has a start and end date. So if you have a due date, that's usually good enough, but the start date and end date refer to the visibility of the assignment. So the start date is when it will actually be accessible to students. So if it's in the content tool, they can't really look at it until this date. And then the end date is, if you put one in, after that, they won't be able to see it at all or access it. So maybe you want them to start thinking about this assignment on the 11th of June, but it's due the 25th. So they have the opportunity to look at the instructions, kind of get an idea of what is expected of them, but then the due date is a whole different date. So you can leave that other one blank just so that it stays in your content. If they need to refer back to it, it's not going to be like inaccessible. We also have release conditions that we talked about a bit yesterday. So you can add release conditions if this is particular to a group of students who hasn't done a specific part yet, or a bonus item for just students who haven't met the mark yet, things like that. You can add your existing if you already had some in mind that you wanted to use, or you can just create a new one. And then we have special access for those students who need like time and a half or things like that. This is actually user-based. So it's like the user override from Moodle, but slightly different. You can change this whenever you need to, as long as you edit the assignment, but you would click Manage Special Access, and you have these 2 options. You can allow users with special access to submit outside the normal availability dates, which is usually what you're going for. But the other one is to allow only users with special access to submit to this assignment. So if you had a group of students, very specific students that you wanted to have this assignment for, you can just allow them to see the assignment and respond to it instead of the whole class. So I'm going to select the first one, and then we click Add Users to Special Access, and it brings up our list of students as well as some properties. So we can give it a new due date. So it shows us the old one in case we want to use it, but we can adjust it just by checking the box and changing it to whatever we need it to be. It's an arbitrary time, 1:36 p.m. I'm going to change it. And then we also have the availability date. So if we want that to be available earlier than the 25th for these students, then we can. I think for my other students, I had it at the 11th. I can make it available on the 4th if I want to. And we can also have an end date for them as well. But underneath all the properties, we do have our list of students, and I only have one, but you should see everybody. And you just check the box to the left of whoever is going to have the special access, and you click Save. And it should show you a little summary of what you've done. So this student has this particular access to this assignment, they have a new due date, and it's available a little bit earlier than everyone else gets access to it. So we can edit this with the little pencil, get rid of it with the X, and then once we're done, we can save and close it, and that student is added to special access, and it lets you know how many are in that access. Are there any questions about that so far? Okay. So that's just the availability dates and conditions. So I usually just click it to collapse it, and it gives us a little summary of what's going on. But then in submission and completion is where you define what kind of submissions they're going to give. So whether it's in person or online, we can say whether it's individual or group. So you can assign it to an existing group if you like, if it's part of the final project or any of your other groups. Or you could keep it individual.
If you make it a group, you can't unmake it a group.
Yeah, just like with the discussions. Once you make it a group, that's it.
You can't go back from groups. So be sure that's what you want for your activity, or you'll have to start over.
Yes. Good point to make.
Sometimes groups do fall apart.
Yes.
It's rare, but it happens.
Oh, yeah. So then under submission type, we have 4 different types. We have our file submission, which is your traditional upload to a Dropbox situation. Then we have text submission, which is just like kind of like this instructions box where it provides them with a text box on the assignment page, and they're just expected to write and then submit it. So they can copy paste from a Word doc if they like, but for something like a free write, maybe that would be more useful because it is more freeing if it's right there on the page. We also have on-paper submission, so that's kind of like if it happened in person, you can mark it as completed. And then observed in person for something like a presentation. And those things are kind of marked as completed in a different way, because if it's an online submission with either the file or text, there is a definite point of completion when the student submits it. But when it's observed in person or submitted in person, then it could either be marked as completed on the end date, or the due date rather. So when this passes, we can automatically mark it complete, assuming that everyone did it, or we can do it manually by the learner. So it's up to the student to say, oh yeah, I did that in class today, or automatically on evaluation. So after you put in a grade, then it's marked as complete. So that's very specific to these types.
Riley, one question there, because the fact that they can submit multiple files, which I could easily see, like, if I have a group presentation, they might have a bunch of things that they have to submit that go along with it. And obviously some of the grading there I'm going to be doing observing in person, and some of it I might want to give feedback directly on something that was submitted. Is there a way to deal with both aspects of that, or?
I would say probably default to like the submission type, like file submission, and then add some feedback saying like also part of this is your in-person presentation. So here's my comments on that.
Okay.
Just so that the files are already there, because this observed in person doesn't give you any option to upload files.
Right. And so, and there's no way to differentiate them, like for this part, it has to be the whole assignment. So, okay.
Right. Yeah.
And you can do different rubrics. Like you can add 2 rubrics. So you could like have one rubric and say like, this is for your file submission and this is for the observed in person.
Okay. And so that would be a way of giving some separate feedback then on both of those.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, good point. So I'm going to go with file submission just because it allows for more options. So I could show you what they look like. If they are expected to upload files, we have the option to allow unlimited files. So if they do have multiple things to submit, this is the way to go. One file just lets them submit one thing and that's it. So it gets rid of the upload button for them. They can't do it. Unlimited is obviously unlimited, and you can say that all the submissions are kept. So all of those files are in their sort of evaluation package. So when you go to evaluate them, they're all there and you can see them all and click through them.
Can you limit the type of submission file? That was one thing I liked about Moodle. Yeah. Is that coming?
I don't think they can, not yet, but it could be incoming, because I told someone last week, they always have like the PI, the product idea exchange. And if people upvote things enough, then it gets added to the next going package. So if it's not already out there, maybe I can submit to it and people will think it's a good idea.
I just like, there were times like students were sending me so many odd Word file docs that I couldn't open, that I'm like, no, you have to do a PDF or a Word. Like you can't do some of these other, I don't know why.
Like pages and things like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not, you could get Word free from the university. You need to go get it.
So I would say maybe even include that in the instructions. And if someone ever tells you and like they can only submit a Google Doc, you can always download that as a Word doc or a PDF. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Right, exactly. No, there is a way.
There is a way.
Now, what about for Pages though? Is that just as, because that's the one I think that I heard more from.
Well, Pages is a Mac product, so I think they can download it as Word. I could be wrong, but there are definite ways to translate it, either through like an online tool, or I think you can just download it as Word because it is such a popular, tool and submission type. Right. So Pages is not, but that's neither here nor there.
So my skepticism is justified, is what you're saying.
Yes, 100%.
Do you think with the submission feature, like how it automatically opens as a PDF, that even if they were to submit, it should should convert it.
Yeah, that's good to know. It wasn't always. That was part of the problem. It was weird. Like, I don't know, like, it
Well,
wouldn't show. Yeah.
Moodles was weird because like I had students submit Word documents and it wouldn't populate the PDF and
Yeah.
things were weird, and Brightspaces seems a lot more consistent in that
Okay.
feature.
So hopefully it's not even an issue then. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Totally forgot about the preview. We'll look at it when we go to evaluate something, but
Okay.
we haven't heard any issues yet, so knock on wood. So we also have a notification email if you feel like getting emails about your submissions, but it's not required, so that's good. Any other questions about the submission and completion before we look at the last part? Okay. So I'll collapse that one, and then last but not least, the evaluation and feedback. This is where we can add our rubrics. So if you click Add Rubric, you can add an existing one that you've already created and maybe used for other assignments, or you can create a new one straight from here. And when you do create a new rubric, it creates in here, but it also goes to the rubric tool. So it's available to view as well. And obviously you can copy those rubrics from course to course. So it's kind of nice to make them, and they're all, together in the rubrics tool. We also have learning objectives and the option to use the annotation tools. This is automatically checked, but if for some reason you uncheck it and then you're going to evaluate and realize you can't make marks, this is why. So you could just edit the assignment, provided, I don't know if it locks it after people start submitting or if it locks it after you start evaluating, but it does lock it at some point, I think. Could be wrong, but I usually just keep it checked, and if you don't use them, you don't use them, but at least they're available. And then you could also do anonymous marking if you want to just evaluate student one, and then, if they don't put their name on the paper, it's useful. We also have the Turnitin link up, so if you wanted to use Turnitin, you can just click on this and it gives you some options, things to set up, such as like GradeMark, which is just a different version, really, of the annotation tools. It's Turnitin's own set of tools. And then how you sync grades from there to Brightspace. So if you need help setting this up or making sure it works, you can submit a help desk ticket. We could try to figure it out. We did have some weirdness happen with one course, but I'm sure that we can make it work for others.
But you don't have to use, because I have lots of objections to Turnitin. You don't have to use it, correct?
You don't have to.
Okay.
No. Yeah, if you want to, you click manage and fill it out, but otherwise it's not automatically connected.
Okay.
So then once we're done here, we just kind of click save and close. If you want to make sure this is visible to your students now, you can, but the availability started a week ago, so I will turn it on. I'll click save and close, and it'll bring us back to our assignment page. I always get nervous when the page grays out like that, so I'm glad it didn't actually freeze. I didn't put this into a category. That was my bad, but it does belong down here. But once we had students submit to our assignment, we can see with these columns whether they've submitted, whether we've evaluated it, and whether it's been published or not. So I'm going to go to this particular assignment because it does have a submission in it. Well, actually, I guess I could show you what a student would see, but it's really just an upload box. They just click on the assignment page and then they click upload and submit their file. But I will come in here for the sake of time because I'm already running low. So once you're ready to actually evaluate your submissions, you can either click on the title of your assignment or click on the context menu and click View Submissions. It kind of brings you to the same place. You can add feedback files up here, which we mentioned very briefly yesterday. And you can also email users who haven't submitted yet. So if you had some kids who just haven't submitted, you can do that. And it'll only bring up those emails of the students who haven't yet submitted an assignment. So that's good. We can come down here to our assignment submissions and just click on the file to start evaluating it. So it opens up in this new page, and like Kat said, there's a nice little preview that turns it into a PDF. So some very useful information about the VPN, but you can look at it, you can use all the different tools up here to annotate it. You can even download it as its original file type if you so choose, or you can download it as the PDF that you see. So if you'd rather mark it off of Brightspace, and it is a Pages document, you can download it as the PDF right from here. And you can also download it with its annotations too, if you want to do that. But over on the right, you have your grade, so you can fill it out right here. You can also provide your feedback, and it could be a video if you like, or it could be just text. If you had a rubric, like Kat showed, it would show down here, and you could click on it and click on the boxes. And then you could upload files from here as well. So if you wanted to upload the feedback file, this is actually where it ends up going. So you can just do it individually as you're looking at different students. But otherwise, if a student has multiple submissions, so if you're looking at multiple files for each student, you might actually end up at this page when you click on their first file. So it'll list all the files in their submission package, and you can click on any one of them to go in and see the full thing. So if I had multiple submission files from this student, I can just click on one and it opens up in that preview. And then when I'm done, I can say back to user submissions and click on the next one. So you have access to all of those, and none of them are really restricted from you.
Would they have
Any
separate
questions?
comments for each there? Or it's just that one comment for the whole thing, no matter how many submissions there are? Okay.
That's a good question. Is it just one, Kat?
Yeah, so like your feedback area, it's a single feedback area for all of the files.
Okay. So you could just break it down with some headers within that thing. It wouldn't be hard, but okay.
Oh, yeah. They have the little heading styles over here on the left.
They do.
And you can even expand this to make it bigger if you just want to, go to town.
And you know I would.
I always loved it, to be honest. I love feedback. I love it. Like Kat mentioned, we have our publish and save draft at the bottom. If you want to submit everything, like all the feedback all at once, that's going to be a saved draft. So I will actually do that, and it'll say that it's saved. If you have multiple students, you could just use these left and right arrows up in the top right to go between them, so you don't have to go back to the submission page and then come back in. So that's nice as well. But once you are ready to publish everything, you can click back to submissions, and you can verify that you haven't published just by looking at this phrase right here. So I have draft saved and what day I saved it. So if you're ready to publish, you can use this publish all feedback. Or if you want to do it in batches for some reason, you can just check the box next to the student you're ready to publish for and click publish feedback. So you have a couple options. And always know that when you do publish the feedback, you can retract it if you need to. You would just kind of come in here, click on the published link because it will bring you back to your evaluation area, and you can retract it. So if something's wrong and you need to change it, you can retract that feedback, takes it back, and the student can't see it yet until you publish again.
Okay.
So you have that option.
That's that's great for, because then as you do discover plagiarism late, or something, that would be a handy thing to have. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Are there any questions about anything with the assignments and such? Okay, well, right before we go off to discussions, I want to show you how to bring it into the content tool because I didn't create it in there. We have our assignment in our assignments tool. So if we go to the content tool, we can just pull it over. And we just go to the module that we need to put it in. So maybe I'll put it down here. I can click on existing activities instead of upload create because it's already made. And once I click on existing activities, assignments is the first thing. And just like quick link, it brings up everything in that category. So I can just click on the one I just made and it adds it to the bottom of my list. So now students can just click on it and it brings them straight to the upload area. If you put any introduction in your assignment, I didn't, but if you did, it would appear in between where it says assignment and the due date. So any instructions you had would appear right in there. Alrighty, well, I think that's assignments in a nutshell, under time. We're doing great. So.